Today we're going to use the Fusion page of DaVinci Resolve to make a nice, clean pop-up lower third title. I think this is an amazing project for people diving into the Fusion page, or maybe people who have been putting off diving into the Fusion page. It can be a little scary, but I thought that this was a great time to handle this sort of introductory lesson. And why now? This week, a group of Resolve creators here on YouTube are walking through the process of putting together, this short 30 to 45 second introductory video for heart support. Yesterday, Mr. Alex Tact walked through some editing basics while he got together a bit of a rough cut. Today, I'm handling this graphic. Tomorrow, Frenchie Color Grading will be handling some color work for this project. And then, on and on until the end of the day, hopefully we've got something together to show off heart support. Now, what is heart support? Heart support is a nonprofit that uses music and the community that forms around music as a jumping off point to have conversations around mental health. If you've been around the Resolve community here on YouTube, you should know Casey Ferris, and heart support is something he's been involved in for a while. It's a really cool organization, and I'm very happy to be a part to make this video talking about it, but also to be a part of this fundraising event that we're doing through this little video series. If you're watching this video, you should see the fundraiser somewhere on screen. If you want to learn more about them, links will be in the description, of course. So if you want to support the mission of this nonprofit, you can click that fundraiser link. Or if you just get value out of this series of tutorials, you can give back by supporting heart support. Let's get started with our graphic in Resolve. So I'm in Resolve, I've got a timeline open, I've got a rough cut on my timeline, and we're not actually in this video going to directly interact with this footage. You could, with your timeline over this clip, click the Fusion button and it will bring in that whole video clip. But what we're going to do back on the edit page is make sure our effects library is open. We're going to come to effects and drag a Fusion composition, drop that right on the timeline. We are going to build our pop-up lower third graphic, but we're going to build it in such a way that when at the end of the series, the final edit for this video is coming together, whoever is in charge of that process will have a title that they can, retime and maneuver in order to fit that final edit without hopefully needing a lot of back and forth in the process. So we're gonna make a small title, but we're gonna make it flexible. With your playhead over that Fusion composition, and then you can open the Fusion page, and all you will see is one media out node. And this media out node exists in the little node viewer down here. And the important thing to know about this media out node is that whatever we do in Fusion, we're going to connect to this media out node, and that is how what we make is going to be visible on the edit page. Let's demonstrate. I am going to press Shift Space to pull up this little select tool search bar. Alternatively, for this example, I could just click this little icon here, this little T for text. I'll click that and it will make a text node. I type in, hi. You can't see anything because for each node that you want to view, you have to select that node. And if I press a 1 or 2, it will pull that up in our two little viewers here. So now you can see that if I create another text node, and in that one I type hello, I preview that one on viewer 1, you see we're previewing two different nodes at once. And while I can see them both inside Fusion, if I just connect this text 2 to the media out, then when I go back to the edit page, all we are going to see is hello. So it's very important that whatever we make ends up plugged into this media out correctly. Another important thing to note is with these viewers that you can preview any node anywhere along your chain of nodes. So I have this hello here. If I create a transform node and preview that on viewer 2, transform is just your basic transform controls, so like position, scale, rotation. If I scale this up and then rotating it, you see that only is visible in viewer 2. Because I'm viewing that text in viewer 1, that transform in viewer 2. So that transform, I can move it around, all that stuff, but it is applying those effects to the output of this node. And then if I connect that transform to the media out, then this is the version of what we're gonna see back on the edit page. So we can go ahead and clear out this work. And I'm gonna start by making a new text plus node, and I'm gonna copy that and then paste it 2 more times. So we've got 3 little text plus nodes. On the first one, I'm going to type in voice of. In this video, the main voiceover will not be accompanied by a video of that person speaking, so it'll just be a voiceover track. So if someone was on screen speaking, I would probably just put their name and title, but for this we're gonna do something, and also add a little flair with this too, I'm excited. But then on our second text plus node, we're gonna type in Jake Lewis, and explaining who he is the lead singer of August Burns Red. All right, so now we've got, those 3 little text plus nodes. And we need a way to combine them, but we're going to combine them with the background. Now, there are a few different ways you could add a background. For instance, you could create a background node. By default, this is just all solid one color. If I wanted this to be white, I would change all these color values to 1, so it's white. And then with that selected, I could click this rectangle button, and that would mask that background. And after that background, I could add another one of those nifty transform nodes we talked about. Then I could, change this mask, even make it like rounded a little bit, and then transform. I could move that around, rotate it, scale it, do all that stuff. But we're going to do something pretty nifty instead of this. And to do that, I'm going to go to this sort of middle text icon where we just have this Jake Lures. And we're going to head over to the shading tab. The shading tab is very cool. For instance, if I go to this second shading element and I enable that, you'll see all of a sudden this text has a little red outline. I could pull up the thickness of that outline, and you could add up to 8 different levels. You could add underlines and different outlines. And under appearance, we also have here a border fill option. This is interesting. If I click that now, then it adds sort of this background behind each character or letter. But you can see when I changed over to that, we also have this level control. That's character. I can change this to word, line, or if I just click all of text, hey, now all of a sudden we have a background of that whole text. And what's really interesting about this is if I go back, start just adding characters, it auto adds that background for as much text as we add in here. And now that I say that out loud, with a short name, this might not actually be the most useful in this title because this description we have here is obviously much longer, even if we will scale down this text. So let me come into this one instead. I'm going to enable that, change that to background, change that level to text. And this background I do want to be white, although now that I do that, you can't see the text. So let me go back to that shading element 1 and make this black instead. And hey, while I'm at it, I'll go back to these other texts, change those both to black as well. And then now we'll look at what we got. We've got this title, we've got just our black text here, black text there. Okay, now if I go back to this title with background, on that second shading element, we have options to extend this background both horizontally and vertically. So if I crank up this vertical, pull down the roundness a little bit, of course, we can fine tune these. Importantly, if you scroll down, you also have offset controls. So then now I can bring this down a little bit, scroll down, make sure I'm seeing all of this. And remember, we are keeping this a little rough. Now, if I connect the little gray box here for this output of our main title to the output of this, background layer, it will create a merge node between them. And importantly, a merge node has this yellow input and this green input. The yellow input is the background input, and then it will merge whatever is coming into the foreground input over that. So now if I preview that, the text is on top of each other. If I go back to that text layer on the general layout controls, pull that down, hey, now stuff is happening. And then even if I start to scale this down a little bit, you can see it changes this like offset control a little bit, but we can adjust that. I'll come into the shading elements, move that down a little bit, and then move the entire text layer back up. So now we've got our name, which on this merge node, you do have scale and transform controls as well. But because this is text, it is always best to go back to the text font size here. Just scale this up, pretty nice. And then do the same with this other little voice of icon. And here we can change the position either on the text or on this merge, scale this back up. And make sure this is all centered on that Y coordinate. There we go. We had an extra little space after this. So now that's pretty nice. And we are starting to get the bones of a nice little title. I will totally scale down this voice of. We just need it to be legible. Not really the main point. The main point is who he is and what he does. But hey, functional. And now, before we start, animating, which is pretty fun, we're gonna add one little thing. A little bit of design flair, but still using this shading element tool. Notice we are just using text nodes so far. On the sort of voice of text layer, I'm gonna come to the shading elements, and you can even preview this by itself if it's easier. First thing I'm gonna do is add this same outline, make it a white background like we did previously, make that text, but we are going to purposefully pull in the horizontal, make it kind of tight. I don't know, it might have been good kind of about where it was, or maybe even a little wider. Now, if you might be thinking, hey, this is gonna be a white background on a white background, yes, you won't see that. But if we add another layer, By default, this third layer, if I toggle off this background, is this sort of drop shadow effect. So if I come to that third shading element layer, if I scroll down, you'll see a priority slider. If I start to pull that up, you'll see, okay, now this priority slider is dictating, the visible layers of all of these, which is going to be very helpful for us because I actually want to pull down this softness, also change that to background, set that to text, and reset this offset control as well. So now if I pull up this priority, it's just like another black box. But this one, we're going to pull this vertical all the way down, just make it kind of like this, like just a little line, and crank up this horizontal, and then push it back down in priority. So now if I preview this over our background layer, ooh, we got a little line here. And again, if we go in and change this text to something, voice of, what else could we say? Like, here is, it will, scale this based on whatever we type in here. Pretty neat. Again, I think I like voice of. And again, this will be something we'll have control over animating. But with just a few text layers, we have a decent amount, not, a lot. But we've got the necessary design elements for a little title. We've got our background. We've got something to fill this, what would have been extra, white space. I might even pull down this quite a bit more, which would mean I would need to come back and scale up that horizontal. Hey, this is interesting. On that extend horizontal, this slider maxed out at 2, but you also have this entry box to the side. If I type in 4 there, boom, a lot of times typing the text in this box will allow you to go past the range of the individual slider. 4 might be a lot though, so I'll bring that in something reasonable. Scroll down, see how that feels. And then, we are just sort of balancing these elements. I have a feeling that I will want to scroll down this title a bit more and, balance this background with all the other stuff we've got going on. Make it a little more condensed, but still pretty good. I still like it. Oh yeah, a little wider. That's working. And hey, while we're here, a great way to vary titles like this, you could go crazy, changing up all these fonts, make sure you have one actually loaded on. But underneath this main font, you have the font styles. So we might keep this main name as bold, but if we come to this voice of name, hey, what if we change this to just, oh no, this is the title. If we change this to something like bold italic, ooh, extra bold italic, semi-bold italic, ooh, I'm feeling a semi-bold. And then back on this voice of, yeah, something a little lighter, or just maybe semi-bold. Semi-bold italic? Sure, yeah, it's kind of like a nice little name tag. But now that we've sort of got a design set, hey, by the way, this is important. I did have 2 viewers up. Remember, you can preview 2 nodes at a time. This little button up here toggles on whether it's 1 or 2. So if you just want 1, just click at 1 and then you've got it. Okay, so if I zoom out and see the entire frame, you can kind of see this title is massive. So while you could go in and scale down all of this individual text and rearrange as needed, we have the strength of nodes. So I can add 1 transform node after this, and then scale down our entire image to something a little more manageable. And if this is going to be, down in the side somewhere, or, wherever we end up positioning it, we can find something a little reasonable. This is also a quick teaser, so, maybe something a little larger. If this is, not taking up the entire screen, maybe that'll be warranted. But hey, once we have that kind of positioned, assume we want it in this lower third and we'll slide it on. Let's talk animation. We're going to use a really cool system, again, built into all of these text plus nodes. If I go back to my main sort of name title, I can right click in this little bar where we typed in our name, and I can select follower. That will sort of enable this modifiers button up there. And if I click there, we have some timing controls. And if I click through to the other tabs, most of these look like exactly what is on the main text plus tool. And they are. Stuff like the main transform controls, and especially these shading elements, which we've already worked with. If we had animation here, it will overwrite those same controls back on the main text plus tool, but only once we animate them with keyframes. So if I want this main Jake title to pop up first and on timing, we have options that we'll look at now. We do want to animate all characters, and I'm going to change this order. If you look at, we have automatic, which in English will be left to right, but we can change that left to right, right to left. I'm going to select inside out because I think that'll look pretty cool. And really important is this delay type. You can delay between each character or between first and last character. I really like this between first and last character. So if I pull this delay up to something, I don't know, something like 12. If I then go over to the shading tab, I have this opacity slider. If I come to the beginning, or a few frames in, assuming this will slide in, we can adjust this as needed. But if I come to 10 frames, pull down this opacity, nothing will happen until I enable this keyframe, and then boom, our name disappears. And if I come forward just a few frames, 4 or 5, 6, and then pull that opacity up, you'll see, okay, it starts to come back, but it's stronger in the middle. But if I come forward, oh, the entire name comes in, and you can see, oh, okay, it's fading in from the center because we set that inside out order. And if we just let that play, you can say, ooh, okay. It feels a little linear because, hey, if we select this node and open up our spline viewer here, we can look at the opacity. And this spline viewer can be scary, but I clicked this button to sort of zoom to where we have keyframes, right? So you can see this line represents the keyframes on that opacity we made. So it starts off, and by the time we get to the end, it is full opacity here. But if I select these keyframes and click F, that will flatten those individual points, and now it just feels a little more, we've added easing to that move at the beginning and the end. So we've got that nice move there based on this follower. And a lot of time I would probably have that animate out as well, but what I think I'm going to do this time is just, I'm going to slide on this background layer, fade on the text, and to animate out, I'm just going to keep the text and slide the entire thing off. So I don't think we need to animate this individual text off, but that means I can move on to some of these other text elements. Now, some of you might be a little worried, right? Because if I come back to this, sort of title layer, you'll remember that on that shading element, we have that background and then we have the text itself. But eagle-eyed viewers, or those who know the system, might know where we're going with this. If I add a similar follower on that title layer and go to modifiers, set it up in the same way between the first and last character, 12 frames, and we are going inside out. If I hop over to shading, this maintains those separate controls for each shading element. So if I come forward to where our name is starting to get up there, set a keyframe on opacity and bring that down, it is only affecting the text because that is on shading element 1. But if I come forward a little bit, pull that opacity back up in my spline viewer. If you don't have any individual keyframes selected and you just click F, it will flatten all keyframes. Name comes in and then our title here. I might stretch that out a little bit longer just so it really sits there. Yeah. Subtle is what we're going for, but that's our name and our title. Now this sort of top text layer. This one will be cool. Okay, first we can go ahead, add a follower. This follower will only be this text portion. So again, inside out between first and last frame. Let's start with a value of 12 here. I'm probably gonna bring this in pretty close. I don't want this before the name. I want that to hit first, but I want people to know specifically tied to the name pretty quickly. Yeah, so quite a bit earlier, maybe like right after. I'm gonna pull this down and maybe bring it in a little, maybe have it animate in a little quicker. Yeah, bring this timing down a little. Let's try like 6 or 8. Yeah, I think I am even going to grab those keyframes, flatten them again, and maybe start them a little earlier, maybe even right in time with that name. Just a few frames. Yeah. So that's all our text coming in, but we don't want this bar just sitting there either. So we're actually gonna like mix animation, right? So the follower is handling this text, but I can come right to the shading element itself. And then, the third one is this bar. And after this voice comes on, I'm gonna wait till that's almost all the way through. And I'm just gonna keyframe that horizontal bar itself, come forward a few extra frames. And if I go back to that first keyframe, I can really bring this down so it's inside that, sort of like middle mask layer that we got going on. This is cool. I've never really done it this way. I'm using a shading element, matching a background to hide another shading element. But now if I come ease that as well, let's see how this feels. We got text coming on, that line coming on. Okay, the line, feel like it comes very late, and also eases not very much. So in the spline viewer, I did click F to flatten that, but if you select an individual keyframe and press T, you can adjust these easing amounts. So I'm gonna really ramp up that bar. So now, yeah, right as that name comes in. And you know what we are also gonna do as this slides, I'm also just gonna keyframe that opacity of that bar. So, oh, nope, I am keyframing the white mask layer on this bar. That's what I want. Yeah, so I want the bar to animate opacity as well, so it fades as it grows too. And then just a few frames before it ends, that'll get up. I will look at just the opacity on this node viewer, flatten that, and hey, preview that static. Oh yeah, look how much nicer that is with a little fade on that bar as well. Cool. I'm not totally sold on the timing of this main title. Maybe I just want it to happen a little bit sooner. So I'll drag that first keyframe so it just starts a little bit sooner. Maybe not that soon. Oh yeah, that feels pretty nice. Unified timing wise. Cool. So yeah, now we just have to do is animate the main whole block of the text, which we will do on this one transform, since that is all tied together like so. Now there are some more advanced systems I could go into. For instance, if you right click on center, you can modify with a vector result. This is a super cool little modifier where you can just push like at an angle. So like you can orbit around stuff. You can build animation here. On many other videos, I've talked about the tremendous cool power of the anim curves modifier, but I think in this video, we're gonna keep it pretty simple. I'm gonna come forward to frame 0, set a keyframe on center, maybe something like 10, 11, 12 frames, set another keyframe, and then go back and just slide this off down to the bottom. Then I can ease that curve from my viewer, and for this also, I will come into that specific second keyframe, pull up ease. So if I now preview that, we got a real nice, quick. And yeah, I like, normally I would like that speed by itself and I would adjust the timing of that fade, but we are keeping this a little subtle. So I will drag that keyframe, let it take a little bit longer, have the text start to come up by the time it eases down there. Oh yeah, yeah. Both of them are nice, but I think also on that one, I'll probably pull up that ease, maybe even a little more, so it really comes to a nice. And on that bottom one, I'm going to sort of unflatten that. It's off screen, we won't see that sort of ease anyway, but we will feel it. Yeah. Make sure the text comes on, feels nice. You know what? Maybe even a hair longer. I really want the text, yeah, to come on as that settles. Nice. And then this, I will need to keyframe back out the other way. And again, flatten those. And on the keyframe, this on the ease out, I kind of want to ramp up a whole lot and set that end keyframe back towards that direction, so we're not easing once it's off screen. Now, yeah. If you wanted to, you could come into transform over on settings, turn on motion blur. And yeah, sure, why not? I'll toss that up for 4 just for fun, just so it feels a little, just so it's coming in and out. Now, we have this timed for 5 seconds, but hey, maybe we want this to be a little bit longer, maybe 5 seconds is good. What do we want to do? Well, we can add a keyframe stretcher node, KFS if you want to search for it here. And this is a really cool node. This is how a lot of the built-in titles are sort of designed to be dynamic time-wise. So if I look at this, we've got different controls. We've got the source, start and end, and then the stretch, start and end. So this source, start and end, if you build it based on 5 seconds, then this will be set at that frame 0 and frame 120. So it's saying, okay, I animated something between these frames. But what we want to look is find out when it is done animating in. So we were going into when this like last frame, sort of comes, and you can kind of set this loose. So just, yeah, anywhere around what, like 34, 35. I'm gonna set this stretch start to, yeah, that 35. And then we need to find before it animates out. Yeah, anywhere we can set this stretch end to 100. And then I can finally go ahead and connect this to our media out. And to just demonstrate this, I'm gonna hop back to our edit page. And I'll disable our video for now so we can focus. So we've got our 5-second title, right? Comes on, holds for 5 seconds, animates out. But now if I stretch this up past like 10, 12 seconds or more, it animates on and then it holds until it gets that last animation out and plays those keyframes at the appropriate time. So it animates out right at the very end, no matter how long those original keyframes were. A lot of times keyframes are sort of like hard coded in, but that keyframe stretcher is really great as an initial step towards making these presets dynamic. Like I mentioned, anim curves is another big step towards that as well, but that's a whole other system. We've already touched on a cool few systems here. And if I go ahead in my video, I'm not sure exactly where this title will be used. I'm pretty sure this is Jake for this section here. And yeah, now that's Jake talking to people, talking about heart support. And now we know who that is because of the nifty title we've built. Like I mentioned at the top, I think this is a great jumping off point for someone trying to get into Fusion. I think we balance sort of accessibility, we're just dealing with like a line and a background and text, while also showing off some of the cooler levels and systems in Fusion. Like that background and that line were also just done on text nodes. And we talked about the follower and the keyframe stretcher, cool stuff. If this is the first thing you've made in Fusion, I would love to know that. Please leave a comment, or if you're just getting started in Fusion and you learned something new here, leave a comment for that as well. But most importantly, if you got any value of this video, or if you just feel like being generous and a great person, don't forget to click the fundraiser link and learn more about heart support. We are legitimately trying to raise money for this great nonprofit through this effort. So check out all that info and please help out if you are able. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.